This is the Senior Focus, and I'm your host, Nick Kaltsas. For those of you who were with us last week, welcome back. And for those of you joining us today for the first time, I welcome you. The goal of the Senior Focus is to educate the senior population and to educate the sons, daughters, spouses, and caretakers of the elderly. The issues we discuss touch all of us. None of us are immune. We will all grow old. At least we all want to grow older. The decisions we make about the care and assistance we provide to our senior population reflect upon us as a society. And as we all know, times are tough and it's getting harder and harder to maintain one's quality of life, particularly if you are a senior. We have a great show for you today. We're going to discuss senior economic security. Did you know that millions of older Americans, more than 9 million, can't pay basic expenses like food, housing, healthcare, and transportation? It is a fact that more than 1/2 of all elder households in the United States have incomes that don't cover basic living expenses. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts leads the nation as the very worst state for a senior to find economic security. My guest today is Robert Dwyer. Mr. Dwyer is the Executive Director of the Central Massachusetts Agency on Aging. Their mission is to enhance the quality of life for area seniors and caregivers by continually assessing the changing needs of elders and carrying out a wide range of functions, including planning and, most importantly, funding. Donna Ostagai also joins me today. She's the client manager at the law firm of Elder and Disability Law Advocates, a law firm committed to serving the needs of the senior population and their caregivers. And don't forget, our web address is www.theseniorfocus.com. Bob, Donna, welcome to the Senior Focus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. It's great to be here.
You know, it's rather disgraceful that Massachusetts would lead the nation as the worst state for a senior to grow old in.
I know the tradition in Massachusetts has always been that we were one of the leading states in terms of caring for seniors and assisting caregivers in their duties to care for seniors.
Mm-hmm.
And now what's happening is that we're dropping further and further behind because partially, obviously, the revenues of the state are dropping, but also, you know, the attempt to be more forward-looking and to incorporate innovation is getting more and more difficult. It's more and more scattered. And I think there have been several articles that have been published with statements from, for example, AARP, where they're saying that, you know, where's the leadership for seniors? And I don't want to get in trouble with the people who fund our organization,
right.
You know, but obviously the way that things have been structured at the state level have kind of pushed elders and their issues down below a little bit.
I don't know, and I'll ask your opinion, but you know, you hear of the senior population being referred to as the silent majority. And you know, at least on my last program and oftentimes on the radio, I'll say that the senior population should be silent no more. They need to stand up and their collective voices need to be heard because they do have a very influential voice when they speak together. And you take a look at what's happening with the budget, and maybe that's a topic for another show. We're not going to get into that, you know, as much as I'd like to today. But the needs of the senior population just don't seem to be getting addressed.
No, you mentioned, first of all, the silent majority of them. One of the reasons I think that happens is having spoken, frankly, with some of our local congressional delegates, our delegation, is that there seems to be a difference among the major organizations that represent elders. You know, for example, you have AARP, you have N4A, which is the Area Agency on Aging, National Group, the NCOA. They don't always agree on how issues should be resolved. So now they have a leadership conference in Washington that tries to get consensus. But prior to the last few years, there has been no consensus. So AARP has always been a leading, strong voice on Capitol Hill. But the reality is that they would say one thing, NCOA might say another, National Association of State Units on Aging might say something else. So
what's the prospect of these separate agencies forming some kind of coalition, at least regionally? Let's say for the Northeast. The Northeast is particularly hard hit with many of these issues that we'll talk about today. What about these agencies forming some kind of coalition so that they can speak in one voice and not in many different voices that conflict with what the other one is saying?
Well, I think what we're seeing now, again, in Washington, is that they are starting to get together and talk at the same table. They are getting around issues and coming to some consensus. So it's not as much of a shotgun approach in terms of the efforts they're making with legislators in Washington. But we're also seeing that in Boston, where organizations, for example, Mass Home Care, which is the state organization that we belong to, getting together with AARP, with the Mass Association of Older Americans, Mass Senior Action Council, and others, to try and get something more concrete, or at least to build some kind of consensus. And now, even including the independent living centers across the Commonwealth, so that it's going to be all folks who have some kind of issues to present to the state government from 18 to however old.
Is there one agency, we'll say, that has been created to represent all of them, or do they all get together and try to talk with one unified voice?
They all get together and try to talk, so they're coalition building.
Yeah, it would be much better if there were one agency composed of people, members of these agencies, that spoke with one voice.
Well, I understand what you're saying, yet at the same time, one person speaking for a group is one thing, but having various and sundry groups going to a legislator and saying, we believe this, another group saying, well, we agree with them, and then you have that building of information that the legislator can use to make the decisions that they need to make.
You know, the financial situation is so dire today that really they need to put their differences aside, get together and speak in one unified voice, or they'll all suffer.
I absolutely agree with you. And we're beginning to see certain pieces of that. And yet for those organizations that represent providers, those organizations are still fighting for a piece of the pie.
Right, sure.
So it's going to be tough to say, I support you in everything you want to do. Yet, I still want my piece of the pie.
You know, that piece of the pie is shrinking. That's what they need to understand. It might be best for them to maintain the piece of pie, to form some kind of consensus. But let's talk about functions that you serve through Central Mass Agency on Aging. What kind of functions do you have?
Our agency does a number of different things. You mentioned some of it in the intro in terms of planning and needs assessment, trying to really understand what goes on in the neighborhoods, in the communities, in the homes of seniors, older persons, in our case age 60 and older by federal law, and their caregivers. The caregivers could be any age. So trying to understand those needs and then putting together a list of priorities so that the federal funds that we care for under Title III of the Older Americans Act can go out in grants to the organizations that want to fill those needs, that they want to care for those issues. So at this point, we're working with 16 different agencies funding 31 or 32 different programs to help older persons and their caregivers somehow maintain, or at least get to some level of dignity in their own homes, in their own lives. They want to stay in their homes. They want to stay in their communities, in their neighborhoods if they can. They don't want to leave the town. They won't leave their neighbors. So if we can do anything to provide some kind of service to assist them to do that, then that's what we're all about.
You know, in your mission statement, I particularly like the statement that Central Mass Agency on Aging seeks to assist older people in leading independent, meaningful, and dignified lives in their own homes and communities for as long as possible. You know, I've been doing this for probably 25 years, maybe a little more than 25 years. In all that time, I have met one or two people that said, I've had enough. I want to go into a nursing home. Everyone else wants to be able to stay in their home.
Everybody does, and why wouldn't you? If you can be in your home and be safe, and you can be secure and well cared for, Okay, now that's a caveat there.
Right, that's
well
the big
cared
thing.
for.
Right.
If that can happen for you, why wouldn't you stay at home?
Right.
And frankly, it costs the taxpayers less for you to stay in your own home.
It sounds remarkably similar to the PACE program in some in elder care, attempting to try to keep people in their homes for as long as possible. But at least from my understanding, a predominant part of what you do is fund other agencies that provide assistance to the senior population in the region that you're active.
That's exactly what we do. The federal money that we give out in grants, no one's going to come up to your door and say, "Hello, I belong to. I'm bringing you a meal from Central Massachusetts Agency on Aging."
Right.
What they're going to do
Especially
is,
today.
especially today.
Yes.
They're going to bring the meal, and it's going to be from whatever service provider we have contracted with to do that. Now, somewhere in the fine print, you're supposed to find our name. It's not always easy to do that, but that's the reality. And the important thing for us is we want to be sure the meal gets there. Whether our name is there or not, well, there's supposed to be some legal jargon that says it should be, but the meal needs to be there. I don't care who brings it. I want it to be nutritious, and I want it to get where it needs to be. So that's what we're trying to do with the programs that we fund. So whether we're funding nutrition programs, as we do 3 programs in the whole region, 61 cities and towns, 3 different programs for that. We fund crisis intervention programs, 3 different ones through the ASAPs in our region. Some legal assistance.
ASAP, what does ASAP mean?
The ASAP is Aging Service Access Point.
Okay.
So here in the Worcester area, it would be Elder Services of Worcester, Tri-Valley in the south, Montechusett Home Care in the north. And then we also work with College of Pharmacy for medicine management, medication management, and they're producing videos that people can use on public TV and that we can use, actually bring out to show people in different aspects.
So the primary source of your funding, both for your operations and for the funding of other agencies that will provide assistance to the senior population, comes from where?
The federal government, under Title III of the Older Americans Act. And it's all part of the budget process.
Okay.
And it goes by formula from Washington to the state, and then the state has another formula to get it out to the various agencies on aging. So there are 23 of us, 23 agencies like this in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that receive these federal funds to do exactly the same thing that we're doing in the different regions across the Commonwealth.
And you mentioned the nutrition programs that you basically fund. What would that be? Title 3B?
That's Title 3C.
3C, okay.
So B is supportive services, 3C is nutrition services.
When you conduct this constant analysis or review of the needs of the senior population, I assume it's income-based?
No, actually Title III is age-based only.
Okay.
There's no other eligibility for that. It's the only real age-based policy that's in the federal government system. So as long as you're 60 or older, no matter what your income is, no matter what your physical condition might be, you are eligible to get Title IIIC meals, certainly at the local senior center or other meal site that there might be, or in the home if you can't leave your home.
Are there other programs that you fund that are needs-based? Or is everything based on age?
Everything is based on age for what we do. We do try to be sure that vulnerable populations are targeted, whether it's because they live in more rural areas, maybe they're isolated, maybe perhaps they have a cognitive impairment, or even maybe they're limited English-speaking populations. We need to be sure that those populations are all covered somehow in what we do. But for them to participate in the program, only 60.
So you take a look at vulnerable populations, you want to make sure that there's ample funding for people that are at risk, and now we find ourselves in, I'll say, a budget crisis where the funds are more difficult to obtain from the federal government. We're going to talk more about these issues when we come back, but right now we're going to have to head to a break, and stay tuned. There'll be more senior focus after these messages.
Millbury Healthcare Center is a highly respected 5-star deficiency-free skilled nursing and rehabilitation center. We are renowned for our compassionate care and specialty programming, making it possible for your next step, returning home. We listen and take the time to understand your goals. We provide support and the tools needed to safely prepare for your transition home. Millbury Healthcare Center is the community choice for skilled nursing and rehabilitation.
Does your loved one suffer from memory impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease? Consider Dodge Park Rest Home in Worcester. Our geriatric medical team and nursing staff are available 24 hours a day. We offer medication administration and incontinence care with dignity. Our activity programs are designed to engage and stimulate the mind. And with Dodge Park Rest Home, you can better protect your estate and save your assets with only a 1-year look back. Your loved one will feel safe and at home with Dodge Park Rest Home of Worcester.
Tired of weather reports that don't focus on Central Mass? Introducing Worcester Weather, the only video weather report for Worcester. Worcester Weather is easily accessible 24/7 by visiting chartertv3.com and is updated throughout the day to give you the best video forecast possible. Worcester Weather also airs at 5 p.m. during the Jordan Levy Show and every Worcester News Tonight telecast. Worcester Weather gives you the local forecast you have always wanted. Worcester Weather on Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Brought to you by Berterra Nissan of Auburn.
You know why I love Charter Cloud Drive? It's where I keep Kyle's soccer photos, my favorite music, important documents, and Jen's recital videos. Nice and safe, online. I can listen to my music at work, share photos with friends, get to my files anytime, even on the go. After all, they're more than my files, they're my life.
Charter Cloud Drive. Unlimited online storage for one low price. Visit charter.com/cloud drive to learn more.
Are you searching for health answers? Want to find the best local healthcare specialists? Go to chartertv3.com. Our weekly Health Watch covers all the local health news you need to know. Go to chartertv3.com and click on worcester.md. You can find the best local healthcare professionals, get articles, watch videos, and rate your doctor all with one click. So tune in to Charter TV3 or go online to chartertv3.com/health and access the best local health resources. Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Always on.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus and our conversation with Robert Dwyer and Don Ostagai. Bob, may I call you Bob?
Of course you can.
Okay, Bob, thanks. There are a lot of articles about the fact that it's so difficult for the senior population, and we'll say elderly households, to be able to cover at least basic living expenses. And they talk a lot about the Elder Economic Security Standard. What exactly is that?
The Elder Economic Security Standard was something that was kind of formulated through the Gerontology Institute at UMass. And what it looks at is, what does it cost for someone who's an older person to actually continue to live in the community, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, or any other given state, frankly. And then you look at what the actual revenue of that person is. How much money does that person really have to work with? And so you begin to set that all up, and you're looking at what it costs, what they have, and that gives you the basis for the actual standards themselves.
And they don't look at public assistance, do they? They just look at what a person's income is in determining whether the income they have, and they get not from public assistance or private assistance, is it sufficient to cover their basic living needs?
That's absolutely right. And what happens is, when they prepare these numbers, they're looking at what does it actually cost for a person, say, who is over 65, who is renting an apartment somewhere, or renting, whatever they need to rent to live, versus what is that person actually getting in terms of income, and then making that comparison. Now, that comparison may lead to a process that says, well, we need more subsidy, we need more money, right, in this, that, and the other thing. But this is the basic living expenses, living situations of these folks, without any other information added in.
So they take a look at a person's pensions, the Social Security retirement that they get, and they make a decision, or they conduct an analysis based upon the receipts from those sources of whether these people have sufficient means by which to maintain an independent household.
That's absolutely what happens. They look at what it costs. What does it cost you to live? And how much do you have to make it on your own?
And do you have any idea why Massachusetts would lead the country in having the largest gap between the income that they receive and, you know, the amount of money that a person needs to be able to stay in their home?
Well, I was kind of shocked when I saw that too.
Okay.
You know, when this was published, and you see that Massachusetts leads the nation.
Yeah.
But not in a great way.
No, not in a great way.
It's much more difficult for an older person to continue to live on their own in Massachusetts than in any other state. And oddly enough, one of the easiest states to live in on your own is Alaska.
Right.
So where does that comparison? You know, I don't think it has to do anything with dog sleds, but I do think that it has to do with the tax situations in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It has to do with the job situations in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It has to do with the politics in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
You know, I think it's an honorable thing that the University of Massachusetts would come out with this study in the economic security of, you know, for the senior population. It's kind of, we'll say, a slap in the face of the residents of Massachusetts that Massachusetts just happens to be the worst place for a senior to grow old. You know, one of the reasons that I can foresee that perhaps is so difficult for the seniors in this state is that, you know, perhaps as they age, the incomes that they receive, you know, while they work is above average. Once they retire, you know, there's nothing but Social Security that they reside or that they use to live.
Well, for so many people, that's exactly it.
Right.
And when you look at the real numbers, you know, when for example, you look at what it costs here in Massachusetts in 2008, which was not that long ago, someone needed about $24,500 a year. Now that included housing, food, transportation, which we don't always consider, health care, and that's if you're in good health, and other miscellaneous items. Now it's increased so much that in 2011, the indices says that it takes over $27,000 a year for that same person to live in the same situation. Now you compare that to someone who's on Social Security. Now the Social Security depends obviously on what you earned over the course of your life, how many quarters you paid in, et cetera. So it's usually the 40 quarters and the highest pay you got over the last 40 quarters. But as you look at the process, especially today's elders, they were not making a lot of money when there was a lot of money to be made. You know, those were the days when industry was big in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. My father grew old working in the machine shops. You know, so his Social Security would have been what they call now at about 133% of the poverty level. Now, again, you look at the poverty level numbers for one person. If you're making $11,170 in a year,
Yeah.
that's the poverty level. That's the poverty level. And so many of the federal programs are based on 125%, 100%, or even 133% of poverty level. That's not a lot of money. Not a lot of money.
I'd say it's a rather desperate situation.
It is a desperate situation. And now when you figure in what it does, I mean, what's the cost of a gallon of gasoline you fill your car up? I filled mine up at $62 this morning. When you look at how much heating oil costs.
I think it's only going to get more expensive
and
as
it's going
we
to get
approach
more
the
expensive.
summer. Definitely.
The cost of health care, the cost of rent, all those things are increasing, but the Social Securities are based on what was earned 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and for some even 30 years ago.
And there even hasn't been a cost of living adjustment for Social Security in a number of years.
Several years, that's right.
I understand there's been, we'll say, a modest boost in the amount of benefits that someone might receive as a result of being a recipient of Social Security retirement. But, you know, I question whether that slight and modest boost is sufficient to offset the cost of increased medical care.
No, it's not going to. It's not even going to offset the cost of a head of cabbage. So when you start to look at what that means, you know, when I look at just in my own household, now obviously I'm not exactly skinny mini, so that when my wife goes out to the grocery store, you know, she has to take that into consideration. But when I look at the increase of costs of what it cost just a few years ago to what we're paying now for a week of groceries, there's been a 35 to 40% increase in the cost of that groceries. So, and that's, and that's for me. And you wonder why we hear the horror stories about elders choosing pills, or do they eat cat food, or do they,
That is a horror story.
and it happens. And that's the sad part.
I can give you a prime example. I'm caregiver of my mom. I take her food shopping every Friday, and her food bill probably, I'll say 10 years ago, was probably maybe $30. She's up to maybe $70 because of the cost of increase of food now, which even we've seen it jump probably in the last 6 months, even worse than it's ever been. And then she has to choose whether does she pay her deductibles on her insurance, her health insurance, and then go to the pharmacy and pick up her prescriptions, which now have doubled, tripled actually in price.
Right.
So she has to choose sometimes what's the most important thing to get. And that's sad for people, to choose whether they're going to have their food or whether they're going to have their medicine.
That's right. And sometimes they'll just take half of a pill so that they make the medicines last twice as long. So they're not really taking care of their own health.
And we talk about percentages. When you take a look at the economic security impact, the income that seniors in Massachusetts are receiving is about 60%, I believe, of what it is that they need to be able to remain independently in society.
62%.
Yeah, not enough money.
No, they just don't have enough money. And the cost of doing business, the cost of living here in the Commonwealth has just continued to grow exponentially. It's exploded. It really has exploded. So even to go to the grocery store, we're saying that the groceries are costing a lot, but the reality is the cost of doing business for that chain, for that grocery store, or even the local business person has increased. Their insurances have increased. Their, the cost of having the lights lit, heating, et cetera.
Everything is
staff
increasing.
increases. Right. It's all a part of it.
So, I say over and over again that the senior population needs to stand up and be heard. They can't really be silent any longer. And there are issues before Congress, as we speak, about cutting the budget. An awful lot of the cuts that we see are, cuts that affect directly the senior population. And now we see studies that indicate that, throughout the country, seniors don't have enough income to independently stay in their home. They need to talk with a unified voice and speak with their legislators, and sway the votes that are going to happen on Capitol Hill.
That's right, and it's not even just speaking through the organizations like AARP
Right.
or Mass Association of Old Americans. It's calling the legislators.
Right.
Because AARP can say things, and it's going to hold some weight. Mass Association of Old Americans or NCOA, they can say things that will hold some weight. But the more calls that people in Congress get from their constituents, the more they're going to listen. They're going to listen.
I'm a big proponent of, rather than, the separate organizations trying to persuade the legislators to, vote in one manner or another, the senior population needs to pick up the phone and they need to call their legislators and let them know what it is that they're facing. Because if they're not silent and they voice whatever opinions they have, the person on the other end of the phone is going to listen. But if you don't call and you don't say what it is that you're experiencing, that person doesn't take into account what you're facing.
That's right. If you don't call, they won't know. If you don't vote, do you have the right to call? I guess those are the other pieces that I look at. I know someone in one of the northern states of New England, and complain about everything that goes on. Whether it's good or bad, he's just going to complain. Did you vote? Well, what's the point? Well, then what are you saying to me?
Right.
It's not important enough for you
Right.
to vote, but it's important enough for you to sit here and bend my ear over all these things that are happening. You need to call. You need to make it known. You need to exercise your right to vote, but you need to, as a part of that then, whether you voted for the person or not, give them a call and let them know how you feel about stuff. Take advantage of town halls, take advantage of office hours, whatever you need to do.
It's difficult to talk about financial concerns without turning our attention to medicine, medical care, Obamacare, and although right now we're going to have to head out to another break, when we come back, we'll talk about these issues.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Does your loved one suffer from memory impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease? Consider Dodge Park Rest Home in Worcester. Our geriatric medical team and nursing staff are available 24 hours a day. We offer medication administration and incontinence care with dignity. Our activity programs are designed to engage and stimulate the mind. And with Dodge Park Rest Home, you can better protect your estate and save your assets with only a 1-year look back. Your loved one will feel safe and at home with Dodge Park Rest Home of Worcester.
Millbury Healthcare Center is a highly respected 5-star deficiency-free skilled nursing and rehabilitation center. We are renowned for our compassionate care and specialty programming, making it possible for your next step, returning home. We listen and take the time to understand your goals. We provide support and the tools needed to safely prepare for your transition home. Millbury Healthcare Center is the community choice for skilled nursing and rehabilitation.
Tired of weather reports that don't focus on Central Mass? Introducing Worcester Weather, the only video weather report for Worcester. Worcester Weather is easily accessible 24/7 by visiting chartertv3.com. It is updated throughout the day to give you the best video forecast possible. Worcester Weather also airs at 5 p.m. during the Jordan Levy Show and every Worcester News Tonight telecast. Worcester Weather gives you the local forecast you have always wanted. Worcester Weather on Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Brought to you by Berterra Nissan of Auburn.
You know why I love Charter Cloud Drive? It's where I keep Kyle's soccer photos, my favorite music, important documents, and Jen's recital videos. Nice and safe, online. I can listen to my music at work, share photos with friends, get to my files anytime, even on the go. After all, they're more than my files, they're my life.
Charter Cloud Drive. Unlimited online storage for one low price. Visit charter.com/cloud drive to learn more.
Are you searching for health answers? Want to find the best local healthcare specialists? Go to chartertv3.com. Our weekly health watch covers all the local health news you need to know. Go to chartertv3.com and click on worcester.md. You can find the best local healthcare professionals, get articles, watch videos, and rate your doctor all with one click. So tune in to Charter TV3 or go online to chartertv3.com/health and access the best local health resources. Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Always on.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus and our discussion with Robert Dwyer and Don Ostagai. You know, we were talking about financial concerns that seniors have, and I had indicated that it's really rather difficult to talk about financial concerns and not turn our attention to the rising cost of medical care in the Commonwealth. Sure. Really isn't just in the Commonwealth, it's throughout the nation.
Absolutely is. Yep. The reality is that what's going on in Washington, changing the healthcare industry, the insurance industry, a lot yet to fall out. We don't know how it's going to be done. We don't know how it's going to happen.
So other than planning and nutrition, what other kind of things does Central Mass Agency on Aging do?
Well, we look to do exactly what we've just been talking about in terms of the situation of how people live. There's one section of Title III that deals with caregivers and caregiver support.
Okay.
The Family Caregiver Support Program. And that's a whole show almost in itself. And then there's another thing we call health promotion disease prevention.
That's a mouthful.
It is. I usually get
Can you say it again for me, please?
3 times fast.
Okay.
Health promotion disease prevention. I usually get it mixed. I usually say health prevention disease promotion. But in the end, what that's about is educating people on how to live and how to live more healthily in their lives, whether it's putting off a chronic disease or living with something that's chronic. You guys have this symposium coming up that we're a sponsor of. It's on living well with cancer.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a similar type of process. I mean, you can probably talk more about the symposium.
We're very excited about it. It's another, you're giving an example how Central Mass Agency on Aging looks to educate and promote people living well with, whether it be a chronic disease or an illness or cancer or whatever it be. The education is the most important, and that's what we hope to provide when we do the symposia. We have 4 that we present each year, and we're very excited about this year's our Living Well with Cancer Symposium on April 5th at Holy Cross College. Registration starts at 8:30 and goes all the way till 2:30 in the afternoon, and I know that Central Mass Agency on Aging will be there. We're actually very excited that your company actually co-sponsors, or should I say contributes to this, because of the fact that you have your website, you're able to really push and let people know about this. At the symposium itself, I know that you have a booth there, Bob, that you offer, we'll say, materials or resources that are out there for people, whether someone comes to you and says, geez, I need to find out about Meals on Wheels or other programs that you offer. You're able to do that at the symposium. So we encourage all people to come to this. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. Lunch is included. We have raffles. I think right now we have probably about 25 different exhibitor companies that will be there along with yours, offering resources to the community. What better way to know that?
What if someone from outside Central Massachusetts wanted to attend the event? Is it open to the public?
It's open to the public. Okay. We say it's for everyone. Whether you're in Metro West, you're out, say, towards Littleton, towards Lincoln, towards Air. It's for all people in Central Massachusetts. Even if you're coming into Boston, we have people actually coming in, I think, from Air and 2 other places that had just signed up recently that are very far, but they want to come and hear the great speakers that have been selected as the panel. We have, I'll just give a brief overview. Dr. Alan Ross-Merrim, he's Chief of Hematology Oncology at UMass. Dr. Kyle Wee, who was here last week, wonderful speaker, great educator, and very, very kind and compassionate, and you'll definitely hear that in his speech when he gives his presentation. He just comes across so genuine and really gives you a lot of information. Dr. Justin Makel, who's the Chief of Colorectal Surgery at UMass. Dr. Kasturi, Vijay Kasturi, he is an oncologist. I have had the pleasure of hearing him speak at one of their symposiums that I've been to at UMass. Again, he talks about chemotherapy, the new clinical trials, new advancements that people don't even know about. Dr. Susanna Makowski, she's the Associate Director of Palliative Care. And palliative care, I'm not sure if people know what that is. That's living well with a chronic disease, whether it be cancer, whether it be COPD, asthma, hundreds of thousands of diseases out there that you can live well with, and that's part of her presentation as well. We have Lynn Gerritz, who is the wellness coordinator at Simmons Hurd Complementary Care Center at Health Alliance Hospital. She's part of UMass. She's going to talk about alternative medicine, whether that be yoga, whether that be massage therapy, Tai Chi, anything at all that helps you live well with the disease that you have. And you, Nick, as well, talking about being organized and prepared when ill and what you have to face in the future. So these are all fantastic speakers. Again, it's free of charge. I'm going to mention to our viewers that it is free of charge. It doesn't cost anything. Lunch is provided, free parking. It is at Hogan Center at Holy Cross College. And the phone number to call if you would like to sign up for this is 508-755-6525, or you can visit our website, www.edlalaw.com. So we're real excited to have you be part of it, Bob.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it fits in right with our mission in terms of educating people, bringing information to people on whether, again, they are older persons, whether they are caregivers, and now, since we're part of this new Aging and Disability Resource Consortium, then we're looking at the entire population 18 to whenever. So making sure that everybody who needs information has the ability to get information.
Well, you know what they say, knowledge is power. The more you can learn about a topic, the more power you have, the better off you are.
Sure, I mean, the better you can control your own life.
And I want to mention, too, with this symposium, people think that it's just for people who have cancer. It is not. Like Dr. Kyle Wee, who was on our show last week, mentioned that there are ways to prevent it if it's caught early enough. The screening process. Colorectal cancer, same thing. If it's caught early, you don't have to live with this disease that's going to probably be terminally ill and you'll end up losing your life to it. It's all about prevention and learning about it, and this is why it's so important when we put on these symposiums to come and hear and be educated about all these different types of, we'll say, cancer, it's not just about lung and colorectal. So I invite all people, whether they have cancer or don't, whether you're a caregiver. Many, many people come because they're caregivers and want to know more. I want to find out, geez, is it a hereditary thing? Do I have to worry about down the line, am I going to get it because maybe someone in my family may have it? Great reasons to be there and be educated.
What I found fascinating in our discussions with Dr. Wee and Dr. Makel when they have been on our programs before, the fact there is a screening process that can prevent, or if they detect it early enough, cure these cancers. That was something that I wasn't aware of. I thought that when you were diagnosed with this kind of a disease, your lot was pretty much cast. They're saying, no, that's not the case. In the event it's detected early enough, there is a tremendous, an astonishing cure rate.
And think about way back when you had this diagnosis and you thought, oh, I have to get my affairs in order, this is it. It's not like that anymore. And you see the progression of how far it's come with cancer today. That's why things like this symposium, to have these doctors, the expertise, the experts who will speak on this, tell you about it. I mean, what a perfect way to get knowledge and power and understand what it is. So God forbid if you ended up with that diagnosis, your fear isn't there. You've already learned about it. So again, a great way to come and hear about it.
It absolutely is. My wife actually just 2 days ago went for her mammogram, and she dreads going all the time, but always so relieved when she comes back and things have looked clear. So it's not that she dreads. I mean, from what I understand, it can be very hurtful. But I think the more hurtful piece is not knowing is there something to be concerned about, and so getting the screening becomes very important. I get my colonoscopies every 5 to 7 years. Whenever my doctor tells me, I drink the stuff and I go for the screening.
Right, sure.
And it's that way of knowing that, okay, either I know that I'm free, for now at least, or, God forbid, at least now I would know what I have to handle.
And not only that, they're slow growing, at least on the colorectal part, when I attended the symposia there, it's slow growing cancer, so they give you the time frame of 5 years or 10 years or whatever it be if you don't have any polyps or anything in you. The point is, if it's slow growing and you're able to catch it, you don't have to worry. And that's what the whole key is about the prevention. So they'll definitely be talking about that. I know that Dr. Wee and Dr. Makel both are speaking on prevention of these cancers.
And that's very, very important.
The fact that you do your screenings and they detect, if you have a problem, they detect it at an early stage and they're able to provide, we'll say, less intrusive forms of treatment will help hold the costs down of the treatment that someone might need. And, in this show, we're talking about the fact that seniors simply don't have sufficient income for them to be able to cover the cost of at least basic expenses to be able to live independently. If a person fears a diagnostic test, doesn't go in, doesn't do the screening, they're afraid of what they're going to find out, and they don't go in to find out if they're okay or not. By the time they do find out they have a problem, the costs are astronomical, and we're talking about the fact that people don't have enough money to survive.
That's absolutely right. It's hard enough paying for aspirin and Tylenol these days without having to pay for major drugs, for example, in treating cancer.
Chemotherapy, Dr. Wee was explaining that it's far more expensive than even surgery. That's how expensive chemotherapy, the long haul that you usually have with it, that can be far more expensive than the surgery itself. So to think about that and maybe having co-pays or whatever it be, and I don't know about that, God bless, I've never had it, but if it did happen, the point would be that, is it going to come a time when you're paying a co-pay to have chemotherapy?
And all of these diseases and the cancers that we're talking about predominantly affect the senior population. So I would, say that it's incumbent upon these people, do your screenings, find out, get your clean bill of health. In the event they see some kind of abnormality, the sooner they detect it, the better off you're going to be. The less intrusive the treatment needs to be so that you can become cured, you can be okay. The problem is if you don't do your screenings and you don't find out that there's an abnormality until the disease is progressed, we'll say metastasized, now you're talking problems.
That's right. We used to actually fund under this title 3D health promotion. a breast cancer screening project in North County, and it was done through Montezuma Opportunity Council. We were one of the funders of the program, and unfortunately, some of the public health funding fell off, and it fell away.
Well,
so we ended up having to pull our funding because we could no longer support it solely.
The issue, the problem is going to be public funds are going to dry up more and more. Health insurance is going to cover less and less. People need to be proactive, find out if they have problems, and try to address them as early as possible. In any event, at this point, we're going to have to go to another break, and Senior Focus will be right back after these messages.
Millbury Healthcare Center is a highly respected 5-star deficiency-free skilled nursing and rehabilitation center. We are renowned for our compassionate care and specialty programming, making it possible for your next step, returning home. We listen and take the time to understand your goals. We provide support and the tools needed to safely prepare for your transition home. Millbury Healthcare Center is the community choice for skilled nursing and rehabilitation.
Does your loved one suffer from memory impairment, dementia, or Alzheimer's disease? Consider Dodge Park Rest Home in Worcester. Our geriatric medical team and nursing staff are available 24 hours a day. We offer medication administration and incontinence care with dignity. Our activity programs are designed to engage and stimulate the mind. And with Dodge Park Rest Home, you can better protect your estate and save your assets with only a 1-year look back. Your loved one will feel safe and at home with Dodge Park Rest Home of Worcester.
Tired of weather reports that don't focus on Central Mass? Introducing Worcester Weather, the only video weather report for Worcester. Worcester Weather is easily accessible 24/7 by visiting chartertv3.com and is updated throughout the day to give you the best video forecast possible. Worcester Weather also airs at 5 p.m. during the Jordan Levy Show and every Worcester News Tonight telecast. Worcester Weather gives you the local forecast you have always wanted. Worcester Weather on Charter TV3 and chartertv3.com. Brought to you by Berterra Nissan of Auburn.
Still getting your business internet and phone from the phone company? Here are 3 reasons to switch to Charter Business. 1. Our 16 meg business internet is up to 5 times faster than standard DSL or T1 service. 2. Our business phone service delivers reliable calling and you can keep your phone number. 3. You save money, lots of money. Get business internet and phone for only $89 a month, only for a limited time. Stop paying too much with the phone company. Switch to Charter Business today. Call 877-BIZ-BUNDLE.
Hi, I'm Dale LePage, host of WooTube, Charter TV3's newest television show. Be sure to tune in every week for WooTube on Charter TV3. It's your music videos and your comedy videos. It's all about you. WooTube on Charter TV3.
Presented by Fallon Community Health Plan.
Welcome back to the Senior Focus and our discussion on, I suppose, on medical issues at the moment.
They are medical issues, and you're talking about, prevention, but also screening. You're talking about all what that means. You had mentioned the federal insurance process earlier. One of the good things that has come out of that is what they call a CDSMP program, or the Chronic Self-Disease Management Program.
Sure.
Or disease self-management program.
Okay.
And it's, it goes to exactly what we're talking about in terms of the symposium, which is knowledge is the power. Where it becomes very important for people to know once they do have some kind of diagnosis, how do you deal with it? Whether it's diabetes or whether it's cancer or whether it's COPD, there are things that you can do to take things under control and live better.
One of the problems is that as a person ages, from my conversations with various physicians, we find out that as a person ages, they have a number of complications in their health that all affect one another and cause yet another complication.
Well, that's just it.
far more difficult for them to be treated unless they, go and get their screenings in a timely fashion.
It's more difficult. The longer we live, the more diseases we're going to get, and all that becomes a part of that. And so you take a medication for one thing, maybe the next medication is going to interfere with something else, and so you're on a series of different kinds of medications, all to deal with the one thing, and then the after effects of that initial treatment. It's all, it gets into the planning. How are you going to plan for your older life, your older years? How are you going to plan for your older health?
This might be a little bit of a politically charged question, but we see all this press coverage to the issue of contraceptive care being mandated by the Obama administration, but then we talk about these other more, I think, far more critical issues like cancer care, cardiovascular care, orthopedic care, arthritis, joint replacement, Alzheimer's disease. Do you think that has a place for discussion in today's society?
Well, you're right, it's politically charged. And my own particular background, having been raised in a particular faith environment, it becomes very, very difficult. I think it does have a place only from the perspective that it has moral implications, just as other types of invasive procedures may have also moral implications. I used to teach ethics and aging at Holy Cross College. I'm sorry, the College of the Holy Cross.
The College of the Holy Cross.
And a lot of that comes into play with that. What's the whole ethical piece of it? Are we going to be there to force people to do certain things because someone here believes it's right?
Yeah, I think it's an inappropriate decision that was reached, but again, that might be a topic for another show. Now, you mentioned the College of the Holy Cross. That is the location of the symposium, isn't it?
We're very excited to be there this year. It affords us the ability to have about 300 people at this event. And I know that when we had our Alzheimer's symposium, we had 268 people, which is a phenomenal amount. We were very fortunate and able to educate all of these people with our great panel of physicians. However, this time we decided to move over to Holy Cross College, the Hogan Center. I'd like to real quickly, though, Nick, go over just the schedule of the day so people understand what's going to be happening.
If
they'd like to attend. It is. It's a filled day. It really is. Between 8:30 and 9:30 is our registration time. Exhibitor viewing, so you are able to go and visit all the tables and pick up their materials and all of their information that they're handing out, as well as sign up for their gift raffles. Every single table does have a gift raffle. At 9:30 begins our whole day's events. From 9:30 to 11:50 is filled with speakers, just the morning speakers, which consist of Dr. Russ Marin, Dr. Wee, Dr. Makel, and Dr. Kasturi. After that, we have a free buffet lunch which Holy Cross is providing, which is wonderful. So we have a choice of all different kinds of sandwiches and delicious.
They do a great job up
there. I've never
been,
so I'm really excited. And at 12:30, we begin again with Susanna Mikowski, Lynn Garretts, and then we end at yours, Nick, at 1:50. And from 1:50 to 2:30 is going to be questions and answers, gift raffle winner announcements, and still exhibitor viewings. I wanted to talk a tiny bit, Nick, about legal planning, being organized and being prepared. I wanted to ask you a couple questions specifically about your presentation and what it is that you hope to impart with people who have cancer or who are caregivers, and what you need to look to for the future in planning it. If you get a diagnosis of cancer, what's there to look forward to? What do you have to plan ahead for, at least legally, and planning for your future?
I think it all depends on the competency of the person. And of course, competency is the cornerstone of all planning that an elder law attorney will do. That's what I do. I'm an elder law attorney. I do planning, whether it's for aging people or incapacitated people. In the event a person has the capacity, the requisite legal capacity to enter into certain legal documents, I think it's far less expensive for them than to have someone go into probate court. There's less aggravation involved in having to go to court. And if a person's able to execute legal documents, they should do so as soon as possible. all adults should have at least a basic estate
I was just
plan.
going to ask you,
Yeah.
Nick, what are the 3 things that are most important, say, for someone with a cancer or anything across the board? Even as you age, as you get into your 50s, I'll say, you should have at least a basic estate plan. What does that consist of?
Yeah, well, we'll talk predominantly about surrogate decision-making documents and power of attorney. In the event you're unable to attend to certain matters and you need someone to help you and lend assistance to you financially, make financial decisions for you, give someone the legal authority to do so rather than force them to go into probate court, seek an appointment from probate court, and perhaps spend thousands of dollars to get that done. It's far less expensive, less time-consuming, less aggravating to appoint the person by rule of law, by operation of law, in a power of attorney or a healthcare proxy. In the event you're not able to make healthcare decisions for yourself, perhaps, not perhaps, it is wise to execute a document, a healthcare proxy, so that someone is able to make those decisions on your behalf.
And how many times do we say, Nick, when a client comes into the office, they'll say, I'm here for a will, and I'll say, well, geez, do you have a power of attorney? And we explain the importance of that document while you are alive. That helps you so much when it comes to, if, God forbid, you end up with Alzheimer's or dementia and no longer competent to make those decisions. You've already made that decision to say who you want to handle your affairs for you. So it's such an important document.
When a person is competent and they have the requisite legal capacity to enter into documents, it's far less expensive for them to do so, and there's far less aggravation associated with the procedure that's necessary to appoint someone to make legal decisions on your behalf.
And I wanted to talk a tiny bit too, because I know the popularity that we have with our Be Organized, Be Prepared kits. I'm not sure if our viewers know about them. We have a kit that we put together last year, last January it was, and we've had over 2,700 kits go out to the public free of charge.
We have many, many kits go out to the public free of charge, and we'll have to have a program on that
Just that,
particular
I know.
kit. But basically, that's it for today's show. We're out of time.
Wow.
I want to thank you, Bob Dwyer, for coming in today.
Absolutely my pleasure, Nick.
You know
Thank
what they
Donna.
Thank
what
you.
they say. The more power that someone has, the more knowledge someone has, the more power they have. I'll be back next week at this very same time, and next week's guest is going to be Kim Harmon. She's the CEO and the president of Auburn VNA, Visiting Nurse Association. If you have questions about today's show, comments about today's show, don't forget to visit the website at www.theseniorfocus.com, or feel free to call me at 508-755-6525. And of course, thank you for watching. Attention.
I can't.
Well,